we're dealing with here in this, what's happening in the schools right now in this so-called sex education, it really is an affront for the annihilation of children's innocence and a release of the sexual urge before God's proper time for marriage. And that's setting the scene for societal chaos.
Hello and welcome back to HLI Ireland's Let's Talk. This is the weekly podcast that brings you all things life, faith and family through a Catholic lens. I am your host, Lisa O'Hare, delighted to be back with you again. Thank you for journeying with us. If this is your first time tuning in, you're so welcome. We're delighted to have you. So, we are continuing on our first theme of the year, which is sex education. If you viewed our other episodes, you'll have seen the testimony from my friend Maria Bernal. That's episode 1. And last week we were blessed with the insights of Father Chris Hayden, who is the author of the book A Better Vision. And he was really explaining the Church's view on the beautiful area of human sexuality. So we're continuing that theme, and today's guest is our Chief Executive or Executive Director, Patrick McCrystal. Patrick, you're so welcome back to the show again.
Great to be here. Chief Bottle Washer, Lisa.
You're a man of many hats, Patrick. So Patrick is freshly back from the Divine Mercy Conference last week, so I'm sure he'll share some of the insights that he got from there and from indeed meeting many of you at that conference. So, Patrick, you have been involved in this area of life, faith and family, the whole HLI mission for over 25 years. So I am sure you have seen many of the developments coming into schools. Can you just share with us your insights into this whole area of sex education? And I believe you're going to challenge the title of it even. So can you let's hear from you?
Well, Lisa, the whole term sex education, first of all, it shouldn't even be used, the term sex education. It's a gross attack on God's plan for marriage and family. But I want to make it clear from the very outset that God's bigger than this, and there is hope for us, which we'll come back towards at the end of the show. But I'm not going to mince my words when we're addressing the subject of sex education, because the Church, first of all, what people call sex education is really an affront to God. It's a gross attack on the Church's teaching on human sexuality. And the very name sex education, in the Church's plan, we should be teaching our children education for love. And that whole concept of separating the act of sex from marriage is really not on in God's plan. And so it's the world's way of approaching things. But what we know is every person on the face of the planet is called to a chaste self-mastery until they get married. And then once they get married, they're called to an intimate, chaste marital union with their exclusive with their spouse, open to life after they get married. What we're dealing with here in this, what's happening in the schools right now in this so-called sex education, it really is an affront for the annihilation of children's innocence and a release of the sexual urge before God's proper time for marriage. And that's setting the scene for societal chaos. And it's not really sex education, as I said, it's an ideological weapon deliberately conceived and promoted by organizations like the United Nations and International Planned Parenthood Federation and all the family planning agencies across the world for the utter destruction of marriage and family. That's really what it's about. It's not educating the children about this or that. It's annihilating marriage and family. And what's really going on then, in practice, in the classroom, in my view, and the way I would say it, that there is a gross exploitation of children's vulnerability and a gross exploitation of children's incapacity to properly process what are really adult issues. And there's a gross, if you like, exploitation of children's inherent trust of adults. And it's an adult betrayal of our children. And really what it comes down to, it is adult-mediated psychological child abuse. It can't be called anything else. Now, this shouldn't even be happening in the schools. Parents, when you get married, the Catechism tells us that marriage is for the unity of the spouses and the procreation and the education of your children. It's not just for unity with your spouse and the procreation of children. No, the church teaches that the two things go together, procreation and education. Parents have the duty, the call, and the responsibility to be the primary educators of their children. And in an area so intimate and as so delicate as this, it can only be the parents who are the only ones equipped, not in the classroom, not showing condoms and all sorts of things in display, and the embarrassment and the tittering and the most ebullient and outspoken of children taking the lead and really destroying the innocence of the more innocent ones in the classroom, along with what's happening from the front of the classroom. No, this can only be done in the privacy of the home with mom and dad, with the children at a proper age when they are the proper time. And that's even right up prior to marriage. Our children have the right to be unsexualized until they're ready for marriage. They have a right to be chaste and pure and beautiful and innocent. And when you see a chaste and pure and innocent and beautiful young woman or young man about 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you know by their faces, they have not been sexualized. They are beautiful souls radiating the grace and the peace of God. And that's the aim that we're looking for all our children. Now, Scripture tells us, woe to those who calls one of my little ones to sin. This is Jesus speaking. It would be better for him that a millstone be tied round his neck and he be cast into the sea. And every person, every educator, every advocate, every person who's been involved in the promotion of this so-called sex education, which really isn't sex education, who's advocating it and imparting it to young people, they are all going to have to give account, the church teaches. Every one of us has to, for what they have done to our young people at the day and the moment of their death and their personal judgment. It's really serious for anyone to cause any of God's little ones to turn away from the church's teaching and enter into the lifestyle. And as our young people, it's almost like they're being mowed down. It's almost like there's a harvest being reaped and they're being pulled away down a wrong road that God doesn't want. And I think part of me thinks that God can't be too severe on those young people if they end up in lifestyles that are against his law, but he was going to really come down much harder on those who were the ones who propagated it and who abused the little ones' trust and pushed them down a wrong road, and the little ones in their innocence and vulnerability just followed them down that road.
Wow, Patrick, strong words. And I know, you mean, you've obviously such conviction about this, and so should we all. This is a huge responsibility that we all have as adults in this society for our children. And I can tell from you as well, it's at the very heart of our HLI Ireland mission, you know, because the sacredness of life, all of this begins with our vision for human sexuality. You know, all of like you've always said it before, you know, contraception has enabled a free and liberal sexual expression, and that is at the root of the abortion crisis. So this, you know, back to the, you know, bringing things back to the seedlings and back to the root, this is, you know, where we must begin.
Education for chastity is the aim for our children. And a chaste self-mastery in all our minds. And every one of us as adults have a responsibility not to be looking at things that draw us away from God's beautiful plan for purity and chastity and beauty. And in the Song of Songs, in the scriptures, it talks about not awakening love before it pleases. And we do not have permission from God to do this on our young people. There is going to be really quite serious repercussions for Ireland, for the world, for society, for allowing this to happen. However, as I said at the beginning of the show, we're not a people of doom and gloom. We are a people of hope. God is bigger than this. There is a beautiful vision of marriage and sexuality that we have a duty to proclaim and stand over, and even if necessary to die for it, because there's a beauty in God's will and plan, and in His laws, that we have a duty and the church, the whole church, not just the bishops and the priests and the pope, but laity and people, men and women, married and unmarried, in our workplaces, in our homes, as well as our churches, to propagate and emanate the light of Christ in Ireland and in the world, and to really speak about His victory, because Christ's victory is coming. We're looking today just for a moment at the doom and gloom of the terrible nature of sex education and the fact that what it's really doing to our children. But that's all only going to go as far as the Lord allows it to go. And as Catholics, we're called to live in a an authentic Catholic victorious lifestyle and propagate that. And Ireland, I believe, is called to be a light to the nations. And we talked about that last month. And every one of us who's a Catholic in a state of grace is part of that light to the nations. And God's power and the angels and the demons are not restricted to the geographical county that you and I are sitting in right now, because they can see our light over the entire planet and out across all creation. If you're as Catholic in a state of grace, you're already a light to the nations. And your actions and my actions, and I'm saying this to our listeners as well, every one of our actions has a major impact on the world around us, even if you can't see it. And we in HLI Ireland, we are there for you. We have the equipment and the resources for you as parents and grandparents to help equip your children and draw your children down God's plan and role for their lives. And Lisa, I think you have something to say about Father Chris's book. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many things I want to say. You know me, Patrick. You can't keep me quiet. Well, yes. First of all, that is a big piece of news. We are delighted to be able to share the good news that we are going to make Father Chris's book available to you. His book is A Better Vision. As Patrick said, the church has a beautiful vision. It has a beautiful vision for human sexuality that we need to share, it needs to shine through our lives. That is the best way to impact our children, is to be a light, living the church's vision. And, we can talk about the darkness that's evading. I know so many people have got in touch over the last two shows, and so, some people are fearful by what's happening. And as I said before, it's very important to take on board the warning, very, very important. But it's very important not to let that darken your own light, not to let it darken your mind, and not to let it fill your heart full of fear. So we at HLI Ireland want to help to equip you. That's why we want to make this book available to you. You can contact the office at 0949 375 993. You can also get in touch with the office to be part of our mailing list. So anytime we have offers on books or literature or any events coming up, you'll be right in the know. You know what's coming up. And also, Patrick, one of the approaches that we talked about through Mairead's testimony was the whole idea of homeschooling as a way to bring your children up in the faith. We had a lot of questions about that. So maybe that's something we could look into for the future, Patrick, is maybe doing a homeschooling conference so people can find out more about that whole area.
Yeah, well, last weekend I spoke to a number of people who are really keen to know more about home education. And the home education really is a major way forward in teaching the children the Catholic faith on your terms and in your principles, and not in the backyard behind the shed. So the whole vision of home education is to help our children get to heaven. That's really what it's for. It's not just equipping them for the best university degree, for them to get the highest paid job, to make the most money. It's far bigger than that. It's educating the whole person, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, so that our young people are going out into the world and they're apostles of life and light. We're going to run a homeschooling conference. We've done a few already in Human Life International in Ireland. We're going to do one later on this year. And I couldn't encourage our listeners today to give our office a call at that 09493 75993 number. Say, I'd love to get your mailing, your newsletters, because in the newsletters, which I write every month, and my colleagues write every month, and we send it out to a few thousand people. That's a great mechanism whereby we can all stay in touch with one another and know what's going on. We actually also have a marriage weekend coming up on the weekend of the 14th of July in Knock with Father Philip Scott, who gave us a married couple weekend back about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was enormously popular. So that's a weekend for married couples, because if we're building up married couples in marriage, the children are going to do better when mom and dad are in a good place. And ultimately, God works through marriage and through family. That's the way he does it. And then we've got a number of other things coming up. With the Holy Face campaign is launching this Lent, and we'll be doing the billboards all over Ireland, as well as all the Good Friday public Holy Face vigils. There's about 100 of them. So ring into our office and look on our website, humanlife.ie, where you'll find the information, and together we can bring the victory of Christ to Ireland. And it's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And whether you and I, Lisa, are a part of it, or those who are listening today, whether you or we are part of it, Christ's victory is coming anyway. It's irresistible. It can't be stopped. So we might as well be part of the action as not be part of it. It's going to happen anyway. And if you're a Catholic in a state of grace, trying to live the church's teaching and reading a bit of scripture and doing a rosary and going to mass as many days of the week as you can, and go to confession at least once a month, you are in a brilliant place to be part of Christ's army. And we exhort you and encourage you to join us.
Fantastic. There you go. We're always trying to encourage you and fill you full of hope. That we at HLI Ireland, we're working all around Ireland. We're trying to help you, to connect you, to inform you, even to teach. We're bringing the best priests that we can, the best religious sisters and brothers as well, and all of the best research to help you to live a truly authentic, happy Catholic life. Now, Patrick, also want people to get in touch with us in the show. So we've got our Human Life website. We've given you the phone number. We want you to get in touch to be able to be on our mailing list. But you can also email us directly onto the Let's Talk show. That's comment@letstalk.show. You can please let us know, your feedback, how these episodes have affected or impacted your heart. And if you have any other questions. We have had a lot of feedback, Patrick, from the last two shows, and I'm going to bring them all together in the live show. So next week, Patrick's going to let me loose. He's going to let me do a live show. So maybe he's going to let me crash in front of all 3 viewers at once. No, come on, you can be the one. You're going to tune in next week at 1:00. Don't leave me on my own. And I'm going to try and just talk to you directly, bring together all the threads of what we've talked about. We had the testimony, we had Father Chris and the church teaching, we had Patrick this week. So we're going to try to tie together everything that we've talked about this month on this whole area. I've got lots of feedback. People getting in touch to let you know what their lives look like as a homeschooler. I've had other brilliant teachers getting in touch to let me know what they're doing. We've also had some interesting comments, Patrick, between the difference in the north and south of Ireland with regard to what's been happening in schools. So, tune in for that as well. So, we really want this conversation to include you. I want to hear from you, and I want you to let us know what your experience is. And this is the best way we can connect, Patrick. That's what you've been doing for, as I said, over 25 years. All around the villages and towns of Ireland, you have been making fantastic connections with fantastic people.
That's right, and we're building a Catholic community. We want you to be part of it, folks, because as the days get more depraved, it's all the better time it is to be a Catholic.
Absolutely, and it has to be with a smile on our face and with hope in our hearts. This is the time that God chose us to be on this earth. He chose us for this battle, for this fight, and indeed He chose us to live this life full of joy. Because, Patrick, as you said before, as the world, descends into depravity and this, there seems to be such an outpouring of outrageous behaviour. It's the ordinary people, the living their ordinary faithful life that will shine, and it will be a beauty of attraction for other people, because they will say, why is it, you don't have the complications that we have and your life seems to be simple and straightforward? Because God's plan for our lives are beautifully simple. It's beautifully straightforward if we can follow His plan for our life. Now, it's not without suffering. It's not without pain. But at the same time, it is without the tremendous complications that we can get ourselves into. And we've seen it, Patrick. We're seeing it. And we're seeing a lot of people now that have come out from entanglements, sexual relationships or relationships that are outside of the church's vision, and they're really keen to share their wisdom, and they're keen to share their wisdom with the next generation in a spirit of hope. And so thank you so much, Patrick, for everything that you're doing.
Yes.
And viewers, watch this space. This man doesn't sit still for more than 2 minutes. He is constantly working for Ireland. He is constantly working to spread the good news of the gospel. And indeed, there'll be another men's rosary coming up, Patrick, in March.
Yes, the first Saturday of March. Been going on now for about 14 months. There's 20 groups around Ireland now. If someone is listening and you'd like to start a rosary group in your local town or village, go on the website mensrosaryireland.com, and there's a sheet there with instructions how to set up and start a men's rosary in your local village, basically based from the mistakes, the things we have learned and the mistakes we've made. So don't make the same mistakes twice. It's all there on mensrosaryireland.com.
Wow, I think people are going to have need a notepad at hand, Patrick, for all of these initiatives that you're involved with. So next month, Patrick, we're going to have you back. We're going to be talking about a brand new theme. So it's going to be looking at the global trends, and we'll have Patrick back. We'll have a new testimony. But join us next week for the live show where we wrap up this theme, which has been sex education and countered by the beautiful vision that we have as the Catholic faith. Patrick, thanks a million for joining us. We'll see you again next month.
You're welcome, and God bless.
God bless. So everyone, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. As I said, tune in next week at 1:00. We're going live. I will need your help. I will need your prayers, please, that I don't make an absolute show of myself. But if I do, I'll do it for the Lord. As Mother Angelica said, we want to be fools for Jesus, and I'm happy to do it, but I'd prefer if you were journeying with me. So please remember that we at HLI Ireland are working and praying for you, and praying for an Ireland where life is first, God is sacred, God is first. I'm getting all mixed up. See, even this talk of a live shows panic me. Where life is first, where God is first, life is sacred, and the family is cherished. Guys, I'm going to really need the help for the live show. So thank you so much. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My editor's going to kill me. I haven't said it. Like, share, and subscribe, please, and join the journey. Until next time, God bless.